China had identified two industries as critical to its global power. Underline global power. One of these, they said, was IT. The other one, they said, was handicraft. At which point, I and two others from the Indian delegation rushed to the translator's booth because the gentleman had said China had identified these two sunrise industries for its future investment. So we rushed to find out, did we actually hear that word sunrise, or did we make a mistake? And could we have the English translation, which was given to us? But the Chinese asked, what's this? What's the matter with you people? So we said, well, you know, we have come from a city where this whole activity is being described as sunset. And then the Chinese delegation, at dinner that night, explained what they meant. They said, the only country we are really terrified about is yours. But we don't have anything to worry about because you don't understand the value of your artisanal resource. We lost ours during the Cultural Revolution. When looms were broken, tools were smashed, artisans were told to stop all this bourgeoisie activity and go off into the fields. And now it's very difficult to bring that back because in one generation we have killed what we had for thousands of years. And that's why we need to protect it. The other point that Rajiv raised reminded me of a wonderful conversation that took place between my colleagues at the National Institute of Design, artisans, and the late John Bissell. It's a group of artisans in Javaja who were advised that with their skills they should make floor coverings. So we went to John. And John's advice was, he pulled out the carpets that Fab India was then selling, and he asked the dastakars, what do you need to earn in order to deliver this quality? Every day, or every month, or every year, what do you need to earn? Because this is the quality I can sell in Delhi. I cannot sell anything inferior. And our whole costing and pricing exercise then started with that. What did the artisan need to earn? How much time would it take to make a dari? What are the other costs that would be involved? What would it cost when we delivered it to Fab India? And would Fab India then find it competitive because they were having suppliers from elsewhere? And what might be the price be when it goes into the showroom? At which point, John also said that I have to take these artisans to my showroom. And when we went to the showroom, he explained to them how much rent he was paying. What was the cost of the shelf space and the floor space on which daris were being sold? What was the salary he was having to pay to the young staff? And he said, when I sell it at this much, please understand, I have to do this in order to sell your product. So don't just look at the sales price, look in all these. I have to do costing and pricing, just like I'm asking NID to help you do your costing and pricing. But the root of all this is that you have to feel good about making this dari. And to feel good about making this dari is not about surviving on it. It's about being an artisan, of being a valued artisan and a valued weaver. So the whole conversation took a very different turn. And years later, I found Judy Frater used exactly the same technique with the embroidery ladies of Kutch. At that time, there was machine-made Chinese embroidery being imported by Indian traders, being sold as Kutchi embroidery. So they were terrified of what was happening. And she went through the same process of exposing the artisan to the costing pricing situation. The Chinese are selling this in India for so much. What would they have actually supplied it at to the trader who's using this as a bogus Kutchi craft? To understand this whole marketing system.
I just, those are the dialogues that constitute history of not just retailing, but of the creative economy. I just want to give a good news. Just 2 days ago, because of all this outreach, we have a eminent Chinese visitor, Sonal Mansingh, but a gentleman from the geriatric, an institution in Ahmedabad, Mr. Mehta, who bought a Chinese entrepreneur, almost in the league with Alibaba and everybody, who came and spent 6 hours here. And at the end of that, this question of where is the money going to come from? Well, believe it or not, it's Indochina. What she said to me, said, why are we all, and that's the conclusion of our discussion, why are we so worried about the Western market, the Japanese market, the Australian market? Between India and China, what we produce and what we can make and what we sell is more than all these countries put together. So the secret is not us taking your things, making them cheaper in Shanghai, brocade for going up and ripping it off on a jacquard, but by collaborating with you, because we need to have our crafts together, and with design, trying to create a kind of Indochina product. I must say all this was sounding so alien, because all that I was hearing all the time was competition and how China is destroying us. And here we were now talking about serious collaboration with their clout internationally to bring designers to work together, bring eminent craftspeople from here to there to work with craftsmen, not to rip the designs, from there here to create some kind of Indo-China brand that will only take it to the next. That, I think, sounded like good news. It's a great idea because it never has been tried. So China, that becomes an adversary, suddenly comes in together and might do a lot more than good luck to him, of course. Fourth meeting, I think it is the Prime Minister's with the Chinese head. And whatever happens on the border, if this happens seamlessly, I think we would be doing what soft power is all about.
Good note on which to end a discussion like this. But yeah, please.
This is an observation as well as trying to understand it a little more deeply. Is that one, when we say craft, and when we use the word artisanal, they are two different. They sound in the actual practice, they're two different things. When we say craft, I understand people who do traditional crafts. When we say artisanal, I understand people who are doing handmade stuff and who create things with their hands. When I see it from that filter, I see craft on the ascendancy in every sphere. Every person, every space where I see there is a voice of excellence coming, at the back of it, there's something artisanal happening over there. You take individual designers, you take, fashion designers, what I mean. You take individual attempts to, design interventions, for example. There is always something handmade and artisanal, but it is not seen as a development of a craft, but it is always seen in development of a brand. For example, the designers that I do are doing very different things with ikat. They are doing amazing things with hand block printing, taking things. But there, it's the design label that is seen to be growing, and it's the design label that's becoming big. You don't associate that growth and that rise with craft. By craft, it always comes down to people who are working in small outlets, karigars, people who are sitting and weaving things, but not doing something that is contemporary, in that contemporary space. And we always have a kind of let us say, a soft, sentimental kind of a view towards that idea of what craft is. We always think museums, we always think government support, we always think people who are supporting it in some manner or the other. We are ourselves creating a kind of a mindset that is dependent on external help just because of the nobility of what we are doing in supporting people that are working with their hands. Whereas, independent of that, if we see attempts, craft people given platforms, both in terms of outreach and both in terms of quality, I don't see that interventions happening in the craft space. For example, there is a Delhi Heart, and a Delhi Heart, for example, if you look at it, it's a nice outdoor space dedicated to craft. But look at it in comparison to a mall, in comparison to what's happened in Chanakya, for example. You cannot, you go to it thinking that you are going to an exotic place where you do something handmade, but you don't think of it as going as aspirationally a place where you want to go to. You think of it always as a kind of support the artisanal kind of initiative. It's not air conditioned. The shops are not designed. They are designed more as small little caves rather than as a space that you would engage with the customer in a very, very this thing. So I think these kind of interventions don't happen when when we think of ourselves as craft evangelists. We are not pushing the crafts into those spaces. There is very interesting things that are happening with design, what we are seeing all over, what is happening in this space. But again, we need to ask ourselves, is it cutting edge compared to the artisanal work that is happening internationally? A bag that is sewn with the hand, with every stitch looking, coming, you see the bag and you can sense that quality. Whereas with Indian crafts, you don't get that sense of quality, and this thing. And craftspeople are very comfortable doing what they are doing, and they don't take that language further, next level. And I, with your help, Rituji, I was in Fortune magazine, and I did that whole series on crafts that have, 5 years. I would do an annual column in our luxury issue where we took crafts and we examined them for their worth to become luxury crafts. And they were incredible things, but they're all dying out. For example, enamel work in Jaipur, for example. I haven't seen a good enamel work. You compare the enamel work that used to happen traditionally, and you see a traditional 100-year-old jewel, and you see the enamel work that's happening now, it's pathetic. You don't even get that sense. So if in the name of the craft, you have something that is a pale replica of what used to happen, it'll never ever get to that space where it'll become something that will be sought for its own merit. It'll always, and somewhere where it'll happen through an external intervention, that external brand always takes the credit and the growth. That becomes the rise, and the craft doesn't rise.
Well, you've opened up a huge issue, and taken. Yes.
As articulated as
Yes.
photographs.
Yes. And what you say is true, but also, happily, what you are advocating is happening, and perhaps the geo collection here is a great example of that. We are stuck with language. Artisan does not, for us, mean what you are using it as. It means dastakar, karigar, and we want these terms to be valued. These terms like art, craft and design came into us with colonial rule. They didn't exist before. But we have a term called kala, which incorporates everything, including engineering, architecture, music, dance, design, whatever you want. The issue is, in what you've raised, is that what was being taught by both our colleagues, you have to create a value for the geo collection, for example. The geo collection is in fact a manifestation of what you're asking for. Because if this is not cutting edge, that term has no meaning. This kind of work has not been done anywhere in the world. And this is one thing that I particularly am highly allergic to the term cutting edge, because when I hear it in Ahmedabad, it is always about mimicking something that's been done outside. No problem with learning from the outside world. But our dastakars, our karigars, our craftspeople, our artisans, whatever word you use, have been in the cutting edge for centuries, and they've been serving the international market for centuries. So we should be rather careful about what we mean by cutting edge. And you're absolutely right, we have to keep on moving towards new market segments. We have, in a way, since independence, devalued craft. For example, when I was growing up and in my adulthood, you bought handloom during handloom week because you went for the discount. You bought khadi at the discount week. What a mentality. The world's greatest fabric, we're trying to bargain with it. And so you might have a kind of Dilli Haat ka, everybody bargains for the craft. That's all right, that's one market. But nobody bargains at our Kamla shop on Baba Kharak Singh Marg. Because there's no question there that we're showcasing quality, and no argument about buying cheap. Those prices are set in consultation with the artisan, and we don't take anything on consignment. They are paid on the spot. But we have many occasions where we are able to point out to them that they can get a better price. And sometimes it is with the point that Rajiv raised, simple things like packaging, presenting their product in a way in which the Delhi market is willing to support. And we do have this problem. What we need to be able to do, which we have obviously not done a good job of, because otherwise you would be quoting those examples, is to showcase these examples that you're talking about. And Geo has that problem. Because some of us know about Geo, but vast parts of India in the craft movement do not know about Geo. And they have to understand Geo. Because if Geo by any chance should fail, which I hope never will, all of us will fail with it. Because the argument will be made, look, here was Japan, World Bank, etc., Rajiv Sethi, etc., and it doesn't work. It does work. And that's where her point is so important, that you have to understand the market is not one, it's all these different segments. And we do now have artisans, quote unquote, dastakars, who are moving into the gallery space from Kutch, the weavers. They are now negotiating with galleries, and they have developed a market which is completely different to what it was 5 or 6 years ago. And they've left the traditional market to younger people, but they've moved out. So we will have all this. I would like to see the Asian Heritage Foundation respected as the Asian Heritage University. Because in fact this is a university. It's a space for learning. And it has had learners for years, and it has sent out alumni for years. And that is again not valued, because perhaps we don't know enough about it. But if we regard what is happening here as two things, the beginning of a business model, and secondly as a university, As a university, is it being threatened by closure? Just the way that if you took the great library at Nalanda and burnt it, it's the same thing. And we're doing it 70 years after independence.
You know, AC, you said it beautifully, because I know so many people in Rajiv's 50 year career, and how many people have been seeded from here, from designers to craftspeople who say, "Pehli baar Rajiv ji ke saath." And I hope people will continue to give credit, and I think the word university is fantastic, because that is what it really is. But to go back to Bandeep's point, I just want to say, Bandeep, you're absolutely right about what you said. But actually, there is outstanding quality being done. And I want to give you the Meenakar example. When you go to the Meenakars in Banaras and in Jaipur or wherever else, they produce really bad stuff because their raw material is so deteriorated. But when they work with jewelers, who give them the raw material, they are worked in very closed environments. But things are changing because of digital media. People are taking pictures and selling directly, and they are realizing the value. In 10 years, you will see outstanding craftspeople who are directly going to market, who are recognized as individuals without intermediary designers. The change is happening, that's one. But I think what AC said about Asian Heritage Foundation, being a university, being a place that has seeded people, and I think the example of Nalanda is so right. It's happening before us. It's such near history that we have no perspective, that we actually don't realize what a loss it will be. And AC, you and I will be sitting there over cups of chai bemoaning it, but we will be as much at fault.
Well, I hope we're not going to bemoan. I hope that this week and more that you've had what Rajiv calls outreach. If we reach out to people, that outreach has to be for something which is of a permanent kind. And no matter what happens in the next few weeks to this collection, I think at least we can say that through your outreach and of course your career, there is a body of souls in this country who value this. And somehow we have to protect the actual physical resource, because that's the first priority. And then we have to see what kind of learning environment can be created around the collection that will take this collection into the future, to generations that are not here. And it's not just Nalanda we can learn from. We can learn from Gurudev's experience at Shantiniketan, where collections no longer exist, where Gurudev's first experiments in design, product design, architecture, designing telephones and crockery and cutlery, which nobody even remembers,
Bathrooms.
all gone. Nobody knows where they are. So we're in a habit of doing this. He himself lost interest before in his later years. He was so preoccupied with music and painting and his theatre that all of this was just left aside. And you wouldn't believe it, today in Vishwabharati, where they have a design school, which is such a fantastic opportunity. The students in Kala Bhavan do not even know that there is a design school on their campus. So where do you start? Where on earth do you start? But what we did learn during the time that we went to 2 years ago, Crafts Council had our national meet in Shantiniketan, because we were so depressed about the sunset business that we said, let's go and spend 2-3 days where it all began. And when we went there, we discovered that Gurudev faced exactly what Rajiv Sethi is now facing 80, 90, 100 years later. He goes with a begging bowl literally a bowl in front of an audience in Calcutta and says, before you leave this theatre, put some money in my beggar's bowl, because I cannot support Silpa Sadan, which is where all these experiments were going on, because there's no money and nobody cares. And this is Gurudev. After his death, all his experiments collapse. His son, who is trying to carry this on, is hounded out of Vishwabharati and ends up somewhere in Dehradun. Where in Dehradun? Where is his collections? Where did he live? Nobody knows. We brought out just now, Purnima Rai has designed it, a small monograph of these experiences. And it's really incredible what that man went through. And perhaps he just gave up and said, all right, let me do my painting and my music and because I have greater control over it. But this other stuff that he wasn't able to move, he seems to have turned his back on that. And when people talk about commercialization and so on, he started the first melas. He started a shop in Calcutta to sell products. He decided that the products that were made in that area should be for contemporary homes. And he was trying to get the Bengali mind to understand entrepreneurship. And then he threw up his hands at several points and said, I am not a businessman. But who is going to come and help me to support this? It needs the market. He never used the word design ever, but that's what he was doing. But Rajiv is, alas, in a great tradition. Nalanda, Vishwabharati, Navation, Ananda Kuruswami. We are, because we are like that only. There's no other explanation. We are like that only. And we have to allow, because that will be the agenda for action after this week. So I think we have to wind up because we've gone well over time.
May I just, I know, just very briefly to say how moved I am, but to impress upon the fact that there are only 2 days left of the outreach, after which, of course, I've been unsuccessful in being able to find a place where all this can go. So it will have to go in trunks. It will have to go to some warehouse, and I still don't know. It was a reckless act. We went and did this thinking that in the 20 days we might be able to find out where to go. The place we are moving to in Mehroli is smaller in a sense. I cannot even open the trunks there. So we'll have to take them away. And there are 2 more houses full of trunks, which we continue to look after. So outreach has 2 more days. Please ask your friends to come. And last thing though, after what you spoke, this is really diluting, but I want to bring it in the agenda because money was an issue that we were talking about. There are 3 brands that we've tried to put out. There's Jio, there's Jiva, and there's Jani. You have talked about Jio, but Jiva, which will never go to the grand malls and what's that big one called with Louis Vuitton and all that, it'll never need an air-conditioned place because these are rural products for rural consumers. And there is money because half of industry is moving to villages and selling them junk. And so what rural people can make for themselves, there's a small section here only that talks about that, whether it be jharus, fans, ritual objects, soaps, rural refrigerators. But Jiva is a big, huge potential that we have to work much more to get there. And Jani is youthful. Unless the youth invest, and they can't because they don't have enough money, so nothing over 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees. You will see a few products that are there also for that. But while Jio has taken baby steps, Jiva and Jani are not agendas that we really have to take more seriously. And money for both Jiva and Jani is there. So since today's subject is money, Jiva can be supported by rural consumers who we never consider. And we can see that from the figures of where the most amount of hair dye sells, to where the most amount of Lay's chips sells, to the most amount of everything sells, to there's so much. And Jani youth, which is the only way we can take it to the next level. Remember, 2 days. After that, it'll be another struggle. Please ask your friends to come. And Ritu and Ashok.
Our pleasure. And I want to say that tomorrow, Imam Muhammad Sheikh is going to be here to share his
Good Muhammad in Sheikh. Muhammad Sheikh, Ghulam Sheikh is a painter. Neelima will be here, but she won't speak. But she'll be here too. Painters, I hope she will. She can be persuaded.
She has had some very interesting experiences recently
with her thing, and can tell us about KG Subramaniam's and all the things that happened with the fine art crossover into the craft. Please come back with more people. And although I'm extremely, very, very optimistic about these gadgets here, hopefully they're going to have their act together to put them on the YouTube. Otherwise, there is so much wisdom that will not go all the way. So please get your acts together and put it on so more people can come. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Come back tomorrow.
If I was not the vice, I would take it back and say,